Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Colin Kaepernick, Tom Brady, Ellen DeGeneres, Rush Limbaugh are sitting in a circle in a living room. Precisely in that order, and they decide to go around the circle and share a deep sadness on their heart. This is not a real gathering in a living room, but imagine with me, when we're sitting next to someone who shares a burden, who shares how they have suffered, our hearts are made tender. It's like a miracle. You're built to be empathetic. It's God's gift to you. If you are close to someone who shares their pain, your heart becomes receptive to them, cares for them. It's a miracle. There's a fire crackling in the fireplace. There's a Christmas tree in the corner and a menorah in the window, and they make it all the way around that circle. And then Ellen DeGeneres hugs Rush Limbaugh. Colin Kaepernick gives a high five to Rudy Giuliani. And then Rudy and Hillary exchange pens. We're built that way. You know, someone needs to hold that gathering in their living room with those folks. I believe every Sunday morning when we gather like this, we're trying to engage in an incredible act of the imagination, the moral imagination. You are thinking of the world, we are thinking of it as a living room. And if there is anyone suffering anywhere, we try to open our hearts to that. This is our religion, to expand our moral imagination so that someone even far away, even if they're not sitting right next to you in a living room, your heart is tendered to them. I know our compassion relies usually on proximity. We naturally care for those close to us, but we gather in His name and expand our moral hopes. It is Christian doctrine that each and every person is of equal value. It's Christian doctrine that each person is an infinite soul of infinite worth. And so that refugee in a Syrian camp right now, their life is exactly as valuable as my life. Exactly as valuable. I know in the social inequality of human culture that I have resources, I have family and friends. If I was facing peril, people would circle up around me and I have resources to bear. But my life is not one bit more valuable than that refugee across the world. Here we are in the living room. Let's expand our hearts. Will you bow with me? We're in your living room, O God, gathered around the name of the Christ, sitting with our brothers and sisters. We know that if we sat next to even whom we most despise, even if we sat next to a racist or a terrorist or a drug dealer, whoever in our minds we most despise, if they share their suffering, we care for them. And so in the wide expanse of your infinite love, we gather. In Christ's name, amen. I mean, have you noticed that in here, not one mean word is spoken about anyone? I mean, have you noticed even when we're appalled by people's actions in the world, we never speak a mean word about them. We imagine their suffering as well. I'm in the middle of a sermon series this Advent called Guide Us to Thy Perfect Light. And each week, we're lighting the candle of hope, love, peace, and joy, and I'm exploring those lights as we make our way to the perfect light, the Christ child that will be born on Christmas. And the premise of this sermon series is that when we say hope, peace, love, and joy, those words sort of fly by without nuance. That when we say hope, peace, love, and joy, it sort of sounds like a euphemistic haze that lacks shadings and colorings. So as I said last week, some psychologists believe that unless you have adequate words for your emotions, you're not as agile and adept in dealing with those emotions. If you don't have enough words, you can be sort of emotionally stunted. So they've created a concept called emotional granularity, where they try to help people explore the subtle shadings of their feelings, name it, so they can manage it. It's sort of a souped-up version of what we do with preschoolers. We say, use your words. Are you mad, or are you sad? Or it helps us explore our feelings. And so each week, I'm trying to add some of those nuances. There is a psychologist that is trying to teach Americans foreign words that will bring different complexities to their feelings. Because we have a word like, say, pride, but it doesn't have enough nuance. When I say pride, you don't know if I mean someone who feels the pride of their child doing something wonderful, or someone that feels the pride of their friend doing it, but they also feel a little bit of envy in that pride, or the type of pride that is corrosive. You don't know what I'm talking about. So this sermon series is trying to give more words to those words. We lit the candle of peace. Peace in English can sometimes simply mean the absence of conflict or the absence of war. But it can mean so much more. There's a Cherokee word. It's a lovely word, do'ihi. I'm not pronouncing that anywhere near correctly, do'ihi. But I'm assuming there's not a lot of Cherokee speakers here. But if there is a native speaker here, they would just be glad we're trying to pronounce it. Do'ihi. It means peace, but actually, it specifically refers to a form of walking. Do'ihi means walk peacefully. It's a manner of walking where you would walk purposefully but peacefully. Do'ihi. I know in our culture, we feel like we're running through life, right? I mean, we're frantic and kinetic. Do'ihi means the right pace, walking peacefully. I always feel in my life like I'm either going too slow or too fast. I almost never hit the sweet spot. In almost everything, there's certain tasks I do too quickly. I should have slowed down. Or with certain people, I pass by too quickly. I should have slowed down. Or there's other things I'm putting off and I'm going too slowly. You got to get things done. It's hard to find that sweet spot, do'ihi, with intent and purpose, but peacefully, do'ihi. There's a lovely Hawaiian word. It's an amazing word. It takes peace, but also love, compassion, joy, self-realization, positivity. It sort of compresses it into this amazing word, aloha. It's not just a greeting. It's a wish of fulfillment for the person in the world, aloha. For the old kahunas on those islands, the spiritual masters, they thought that when you engage in some positivity, some warmth, some positivity, it actually creates energy that is real in the universe. Aloha is an actual energy, and it can be passed among people. So you can go forth throughout a day and you can pass on this positive energy, literally adding more positivity to the fabric of the universe and to other people's lives. Aloha reminds us that it's not just important for you to feel peaceful yourself. When you're peaceful, it helps others. So in the morning when you're about to leave the house, you should pause for a moment. You're about to go affect a lot of lives, everyone you'll pass. Bring some aloha spirit to your mind. You'll affect many lives. You know how public health officials will say you should take a flu shot, not just for yourself, but to protect others from contagion. Well, you should make sure you do an infusion of peace every morning, right? Because you're about to go forth and affect people. Affect them with aloha, positivity. Aloha is very close to the Hebrew word for peace, shalom. Shalom also doesn't just mean peace. It's hoping for that person wholeness or completeness. I know we loved when Tom Cruise said to her, "You complete me." I know we loved that line, but shalom's even better. It's about them being completed, offering it to them, their completion. Shalom. You know, the word peace is used almost 100 times in the New Testament. I remember how short of a book the New Testament is. Most of our Bible's the Old Testament. Then there's this short book, and the word peace is used almost 100 times, like a drumbeat, peace. But of course, the New Testament was written in Greek, so it's not actually saying the English word peace. Almost 100 times it says eirene. Eirene is the Greek word for peace, eirene. It's where we get the wonderful female name Irene, eirene in Greek, peace. As you read our Bible and you see the way eirene appears in its pages, it's clear that it's trying to teach us that eirene or peace is three-dimensional or tri-directional. Eirene is either speaking about being at peace with God, that vertical dimension, or eirene is talking about being at peace with yourself, and eirene is talking about being at peace with your brothers and sisters. So three directions: God, self, others, eirene. Let's explore that depth. Oh, those shadings, three dimensions. First, being at peace with God. Are you at peace with God? Let me be clear. Eirene is not asking if God is at peace with you. It's not in God's character not to be at peace with you. God is of infinite mercy. Eirene is asking, are you at peace with God? We can go sideways. I know so much of Christian theology imagines a judging, punitive God, that you better get right with this judging, punitive, divine being. But that theology, it's just not right. We're taught in the Bible, in the prodigal son, that God is a loving father or mother that is always out at the end of the road looking for you to return. That no matter what you have done, God is always welcoming you. That God is of infinite forgiveness. We know that in the Scriptures. That theology puts it in the wrong tone. It's about you. Are you at peace with God? And I'm worried because some people confuse religion with God. And so if they're sideways with religion, they think they're not at peace with God. I worry about this. And religions, they try to almost produce this confusion. Revealed religions like Christianity or Islam will say that this is the Word of God, that this is a revealed religion from on high. And they make you think the religion itself is God. God is beyond any religion. God is God. Our religion, our beautiful Christianity, it's a historical, symbolic, poetic expression of our yearnings for God. It's a wisdom tradition that can put you on that path of peace, that doihi, can get you walking in His footsteps. But the religion isn't God. I need people to know this because many people have fallen away from religion. Actually, what's happening in America, and I'm worried, is you're seeing this separation. People are either falling away from religion altogether or they're doubling down and becoming fundamentalist. You're seeing it separate off, but there's this gracious middle way, understanding religion as poetry and symbol and love and hope and our aspirations together. And there's a middle way. When I say, are you at peace with God, I don't mean whether you believe all the creeds or every single teaching of the church. I mean, have you oriented your life and spirit to that infinite love? Irene. And then Irene speaks of, are you at peace with yourself? How peaceful are you feeling? These are difficult times to feel peaceful. How peaceful do you feel? Actually, it can be hard for human beings to feel peaceful anytime because we always got this things going. We're always insecure, defensive, and filled with cravings and desires. And we're human beings, right? And so it's hard to feel peaceful when you're insecure, defensive, and filled with all these cravings. For me, throughout every day, I feel this basic insecurity. Am I good enough? Am I measuring up? What do people think about me? There's this basic insecurity that I'm not sure I really measure up. And so I better earn it, right? I better prove it somehow. And I've got this insecurity that's fueling me. And because I'm insecure, I get defensive. And I'll start to self-protect, right? And so I get defensive all the time, actually. My primary mode of defensiveness is I rationalize. Like whatever action I do, I can come up with a good explanation of why I did it. Even if it was a lame action, even if it was silly, sideways, and wrong, I can spin a narrative. Well, I did that because, and I can rationalize till the sun goes down. Because I'm insecure, and I rationalize all my actions, and I'm filled with all these cravings, right? I have these desires, and most of us are filled with desires that end up being pretty illusory, like you want to win, or you want to be a success, or you want to achieve all these things. But by the end of that, it's not really fulfilling. And so what the church is trying to do is give you better desires. In those human beings, man, we have dreams. We're going to strive for things, but the church tries to provide you the higher aims, the higher desires of bringing love and justice into the world, and you know those higher desires. There is a sequence of 5 times in the New Testament when Jesus says, Irene. Now, he probably was saying shalom in his time, but the book we read has him saying Irene 5 times. It's in the farewell discourse to his disciples. He knows he's going to die. They're in sort of an emotional, spiritual panic. And he says to them in chapter 14, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God and Irene, have peace. In 14, then he says it again in 16, peace be with you. Irene be with you. And then in the 20th chapter, 3 times, he comes to the disciples twice when they're in a closed room and they're in a panic, and he says, Irene, Irene. Well, now I hear him being very specific. I hear him saying to us, when Jesus says, peace be with you, Irene, I hear him saying, you don't need to feel so insecure. You're of infinite worth. You have been vouchsafed by Christ. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be defensive. When I hear him say Irene, you don't need to defend yourself and self-protect all day long. You're okay. You don't need to be filled with these cravings that go, no, Irene. I hear him being very specific, Irene. You don't need to do anything. Just accept that you are accepted, Irene. Irene with God, with ourselves, and lastly, with others. It's not always easy to be at peace with our brothers and sisters, even in a living room sometimes. How are you doing with your brothers and sisters? Let me end by just giving you 2 little tips. Just 2 little tips to produce more Irene with those around you. First of all, you're watching your brothers and sisters, and you see when they do something, you form an interpretation. We do this very naturally. You're constantly interpreting the actions of those around you. But life is moving fast. You often don't check out with the actual person whether your interpretation is accurate. You may not know why they said that to you or what they did, but you interpret it. You think, boy, that guy's mean or he's selfish, or you get an interpretation. You don't check it out because life is fast. Then you begin to act on your interpretations. Maybe your interpretations are wrong, but you're acting on them now, and it kind of spins out, and it creates disruptions in irene. So here's just a little tip. You're going to interpret people's actions. It's what you do. But first, give it the most kind interpretation you can. Just try this sometimes. Because you do this with your best friends. This is precisely what a good friend is. You're always interpreting their actions kindly. Oh, Ted, he didn't mean to say that. He really has some anxiety today because of the job. And you give the absolute best interpretation to your friends. It's what you do. But start that way with others. It's just as likely to be right as your other interpretations. You might as well start with a gracious one. And secondly, just a little tip. Because we're constantly comparing ourselves to one another, we do. We're watching each other, we're comparing. Here's a tip. Don't compare the best part of yourself with the worst part of them. We do this because it makes us feel pretty good. We compare what we're really good at. Oh, look, they're not so good at that. Or you're making these, it's not fair. Don't compare the best part of yourself with the worst part of them. They have other ways that they excel and are gifted and are loving. Irene, 3 dimensions, irene. Here we are in the living room. Here we are. We share our burdens. We lift up our hopes and dreams. In this living room, irene.